All right, hi everybody. Thank you so much for having me. As mentioned, my name's Sophia Christopher. I am a music therapist and registered psychotherapist here in the KW area. And I mostly just practice neurologic music therapy. I'm gonna just get this out of the way. There we go, thank you. So you'll soon find out from this presentation that I have two main passions in life. Very excited to speak to you today about music and the brain. And how wonderful is it that we get to use music to sort of influence the brain and really help with those neural pathways and the neural rehab. So join me with this presentation. Thank you so much. All right, so today I'm really just going to be talking about neurologic music therapy. I'm going to give a very high-level explanation of NMT and really spend the time today talking about how music can really influence the brain, how music can impact our brain, and really how rhythm can impact both our mind, our body, and our bodies, and assist with those activities of daily living. Ooh, a little anxious, sorry. Yeah. All right, so neurologic music therapy is defined as the therapeutic application of music to the cognitive, sensory, motor function due to neurologic disease of the human nervous system. That is a lot of jargon, so what does that really mean? It just means that neurologic music therapy uses the nuances of music, so the pitch, the rhythm, the sound, to really influence neuroplasticity and recover lost brain functions after a disease or after a brain injury. It's based on a neuroscience model of music perception and production. So with that, again, just meaning that researchers really look to see how music impacts the brain, and through that, neurologic music therapy was created through these research findings. Neurologic music therapy was created, as were the 20 standardized interventions. So I'm not going to talk about all of these standardized interventions, mostly just going to focus today on the technique, on the three domains. So we have our sensory motor training, our speech and language training, and our cognitive training. But before we get into that conversation, I have a question for you. Have you ever really thought about how complex music is? Have you thought about what happens to our brain when we actually listen to music or when we engage in music? Let's work through it together, right? When we listen to music, even just listening, not playing an instrument or anything, when we listen to music, we're listening, right? So we're using our auditory cortex, the incoming signal, the music is coming into our brains, and we're understanding. Because we're listening to music, we are activating our prefrontal cortex because we're thinking about the music, right? We're thinking about what's happening in the brain. So that prefrontal cortex, if you are not aware of, really is your cognitive tasks. So your executive functioning, thinking, your attention control, your memory, etc. So we're thinking about the music that's happening. A lot of the times, too, our motor areas of the brain are also activated because who can't tap, move, sing, tap, move, or sway back and forth when listening to music? Even if we're not moving, our motor areas are still firing, which is so interesting. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. And then finally, our speech and language areas are being activated as well because who can't sing, right? Who can't sing or hum along when we have a great song going on? So because so many of the area of the brain is being activated when we listen to music, we have these four working mechanisms that are also happening at the exact same time as we listen to music. Our brain is understanding the rhythm. Our brain is understanding the rhythm and the time interval between each beat of the song. Our brain is understanding the patterns of music that's being involved. Again, because so many different areas of the brain are being activated, we have different neural networks activating simultaneously at the same time. And then listening to an aesthetically pleasing song also elicits this an affective or an emotional response. So lots of things, right? What a workout for the brain. Awesome. So again, today we're going to talk about, let's start with sensory motor rehab. This brings us to our first domain. And this is actually where I'm going to spend most of our time talking today. Really understanding the rhythm and how the rhythm impacts our brain, how our rhythm impacts our walking. So show of hands here in this room, who here feels like their movement is affected by their Parkinson's disease? If you feel honest, you can raise your hand. If not, that's okay. But thank you so much for sharing. So within this domain, neurologic music therapists will use music as the guiding force to improve motor functions. And I know it sounds funny to think about it initially, but work with me here. So we can actually use music to reduce those shuffled steps, eliminate freezing of gait altogether, reducing the number of falls, because, and again, the anxiety that we talked about related to the number of falls. And we can even help to improve the gait parameters, such as the stride length, our velocity, and even improve strength. Really cool how it works out that way. And then there's 3 primary interventions. We have rhythmic auditory stimulation, therapeutic instrumental music performance, and pattern sensory enhancement. But to really understand these interventions and to understand what's happening within these interventions, we really have to understand the power of rhythm. All right, so just so you guys know a little, just to let you guys know, I am gonna have you, everybody in this room, to participate with me in some activities, hence the guitar is up here. So I hope you're okay doing that. But it really doesn't matter what type of music we listen to. Doesn't matter the song, it doesn't matter the style. Somehow, right, somehow we are moved by music. There's something innate in us that makes us want to move, which is so fascinating. And why does that happen? We might tap our feet, clap our hands, pat our lap, whatever. But it's really just because of how music is presented, or how rhythm is presented within the music. So, for example, I have the guitar here. Can everybody kind of hear that? Yeah. So how might you move to this? It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Yeah. Amazing. So I did see some people going kind of back and forth, some foot tapping, some finger tapping. Very good. Here's another one. How might you move to this beat now? Yeah, a little slower. Good. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. Oh, everyone's singing. So good. So we're activating both there, right? Demonstration, really great. We're activating both those motor and the singing stuff. But I did see lots of people swaying back and forth, and that's exactly it, right? In that first demonstration, that rhythm was presented as a marching pattern. Whereas in that second demonstration, that rhythm was presented as a sway, as a waltz, as our 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So as you can see, it's so easy to fall into music's rhythm, isn't it? Our minds crave rhythmical patterns. We're organized by rhythm within music. We think rhythmically even, which is so interesting. We talk rhythmically. So when a rhythm is available, we fall into the beat. We fall into the music's beat. And this idea of falling into beat is called entrainment. Do we know what entrainment is? No, okay. So entrainment is our brains are processing the time interval between each beat, and we're falling into this beat. So if I have a steady beat here, yeah, I'm gonna get everybody, another demonstration here. I'm gonna get everybody to tap on the table, just with their fingers. Let's just do some finger tapping. And try to tap. Yeah, oh, you guys are so good. Very good. Might switch over to clapping for me. You guys can keep tapping. Very good. How easy was it to fall into rhythm? So again, this idea of falling into rhythm is what we call entrainment. And entrainment, as we just demonstrated, is an innate experience for humans. It's something that we just automatically do. When there's a rhythm available, when there's a beat available, we just fall into that beat. There's lots of research that supports this, but Tout and colleagues actually demonstrated that falling into this beat, or entrainment, it happens at a subconscious level, so we don't even think about it. And as you guys could see, as we were tapping the table, everybody, without really thinking about the involvement, sped up with me. So we fell into this place, and we continued to fall into the place. So really interesting to have just rhythm be present and be available and have it be an innate experience. It's funny, when we think about rhythm, if we overthink about entrainment, or if we overthink about falling into rhythm, we actually psych ourselves out, and we do worse than if we were to just to let it happen, which is so interesting. Okay, so the diagram. So it's hard to understand where entrainment lives within our bodies, but some recent research by Jessica Grahn, again the Touts, Brett as well, demonstrated that our internal cueing system, so that entrainment, starts at the basal ganglia, it goes back to the cerebellum, and then onward to the motor cortices. The basal ganglia is also the part of the brain that's responsible most for controlling voluntary movements. So as I'm sure you can tell, the basal ganglia is very, very important in regards to our movement. But unfortunately, the basal ganglia is also part of the brain that is most affected by Parkinson's disease. And this is often why we see those uncontrolled movements, the involuntary movements, the shuffled gait patterns, the freezing gait. So bids the question, how does music and how does rhythm actually improve movement in individuals with Parkinson's disease? This actually brings us to our first intervention. So rhythmic auditory stimulation does just that. It takes the rhythm to help, and it has individuals with Parkinson's disease walk to music, walk to a beat, walk with a therapist playing live demonstration of music, or even just a metronome. But, I mean, music works better. So again, and why does it work? It's because of how the rhythm is presented in music. So music is a provider of a strong rhythmic cue. And by having this strong rhythmic cue happening outside of our body, it activates the basal ganglia and actually resets our internal cueing system. So it resets our internal cueing system. So the external rhythm helps our internal cue get back on track. Does that make sense? Kind of? Yeah? Okay. Secondly, by having a rhythmic cue available, also strongly activates our central pattern generators. So our central pattern generators are a cluster of neurons that are located in the spinal cord, and they're responsible for rhythmical movement. So if you think about walking, our walking should be very rhythmical, right? It's a 1-2 marching pattern, as we already demonstrated. So by having this external rhythmic cue, or this strong sensory cue, or music in general, creates a connection to the CPGs, and then with these CPGs, it just automatically kicks in, if you will. So if your basal ganglia is affected, your CPGs will automatically kick in and override the affected brain, or affected brain area, which is so interesting. So we have, not only does music and rhythm activate the basal ganglia, it also activates the CPGs. So I just want to show a quick demonstration of what this looks like in therapy. So this is an individual that I was working with. He has Parkinson's disease in a long-term care facility. I actually worked with him before doing rhythmic auditory stimulation. He was very musical, and he just wanted to write a song. So we took the song that we wrote and actually used it in our therapy.
Birds say birds can do, and you think they can fly,
All right, so I'm just going to go back to the very beginning before it gets kind of clustered with people there. I'm going to do this one more time. Take a look at his feet as we walk.
Birds say birds can do, and you think.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm sure you could tell, right? He was stepping with the beat, which is really fantastic. When we first started working together, this individual, or when he would engage in physiotherapy beforehand, this individual would walk a couple steps and then just needing to sit down, and then would walk a couple steps and then just needing to sit down. In our very first session, because he was motivated, right, by the music and the song that he wrote. And then also it was something new, and then also it's rhythmic auditory stimulation. He actually walked really far. He walked from his room all the way to the other unit and back without needing to sit, which was really, really cool to see. All right, so we talked about rhythmic auditory stimulation, and now we're actually going to talk about therapeutic instrumental music performance. Sounds like a big thing. We'll call it TIMP, and really all it is actually utilizing a rhythmic instrument or utilizing an instrument within the therapy. So by having somebody play an instrument, what can this do? It entertains, yeah, exactly. I'm not saying a guitar, I'm not saying a piano, I'm not saying anything challenging. Often what we use is a drum and have it just out of reach, right? Or a chime or a bell with our feet. And so if we're reaching towards an instrument that's out of reach, a little bit out of reach, we're improving our posture, working on our abdominal support, we're improving our balance with shifting of weights. We're also improving our range of motion, right? We're also improving our strength and our endurance to be able to do it. So we pair playing an instrument with a rhythm or with a consistent beat, and what's created is a feed-forward feedback loop. So we got this feed-forward effect by having the metronome present. We're constantly thinking and priming our bodies, and we're organizing our minds to think, okay, I need to play the instrument here. Okay, I need to play the instrument here. And then we get a feedback loop by actually playing the instrument. Am I playing on time? Am I playing on time? No. Okay, I'm going to adjust my rhythm. I'm going to adjust my playing to actually create that thing. So it's really cool. We got this auditory feedback, which allows us to create the appropriate response. And then we also have pattern sensory enhancement. So pattern sensory enhancement is really kind of like exercise and music combined, right? But here we're using music to drive those movement patterns. And using the elements of music to sort of drive those movement patterns. Great, so I'm going to do another demonstration. Keeping it really, really simple. We can work on so many different things here. Let's see if my fingers will cooperate while I'm nervous. We can do so many different things here, such as like sit to stand works really, really well with pattern sensory enhancement. Changing directions works really, really well with pattern sensory enhancement. But I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm just going to ask everybody to try to do this with me. We're going to raise our leg, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, down, 2, 3, rest, 2, 3. So if you can do that, do join me. Again, we're going to go, let me just play this once. All right, we're going to go and up, 2, 3, hold. Good. Down, 2, 3, rest. And up, 2, 3, hold. Down, 2, 3, rest. And up, 2, 3, hold. Down, 2, 3, rest. Good. So many things are happening there musically. I probably didn't notice. You guys were focusing on your movement. But what's happening rhythmically and what's happening musically are the music pattern going up reflects or drives that motion of raising our leg, right? 1, 2, 3, we're raising our leg up. There's tension in the music when we get to the top as we're holding, because having to hold our leg takes a lot of tension, right? So that tension is reflected in the music as well. We come down, there's a downward pattern for coming back down. And then there's sort of that resolve at the end, or that relaxation sound. How beautiful is that, right? At the very end. So again, so many things can happen. That was a really, really easy demonstration. But again, we're using music to drive those movement patterns forward. So I have another demonstration, or another video example. And unfortunately, I don't have a video example of an individual with Parkinson's disease, but I did want to use this video demonstration just so that you can see all 3 interventions in one video. So this video is not me. This video is from Med Rhythms, which is a music therapy practice in the States. So here we're actually focusing on the using the foot to play that cymbal in addition with the hand movement. Really hard to do. Yeah. And that was just the second attempt at that. Yeah, thank you. Those are side by side, yeah. So this is what happens when we can use music to influence our walking patterns. So cool. Of course, music therapy here was administered multiple times throughout the week, so it's sort of a high pace. At the hospital, I do similar sort of work where I'm able to work with the patient and physiotherapist up to 3 times a week to really help improve that, like the brain injuries or the stroke or anything else. But these interventions are also so good for individuals with Parkinson's disease, and it's the same, works the same way. Okay, good. So that's it for sensory motor rehab. As I mentioned, that was going to take a very big chunk of our time today, but I do just want to quickly go over speech and language rehab as well as the cognitive rehab domains as well. So speech and language interventions, these are really important for individuals that speak quietly, right, are a bit breathless, for individuals that have a hard time projecting their voice, or having, for individuals that, I can project my voice, no problem. For individuals that, sort of run out of air quickly, that endurance stuff, right? Also really, have you guys noticed when you're talking on the phone and somebody says that they can't hear you? So we're targeting those behaviors through speech and language exercises. So again, these goals are to improve the intelligibility of speech, improve your respiratory endurance, improve your respiratory strength, your projection, right? Improve that breath support. And there are eight interventions, I believe, in total, but we're only going to go over the 4 that are most applicable to Parkinson's disease. Again, very high level, these interventions, but the first one is oral and motor respiratory exercises. So this intervention really uses wind instrument. Has anyone tried wind instrument, like a harmonica, a melodica, what did we play in nose flutes? The flute, yeah, the clarinet, the recorder, that's what I was trying to think of, the recorder that we all played in elementary school. So these instruments are actually really good, not only to improve your respiratory system, right? Because it takes so much air to play these instruments, but it also helps to improve the parameters around your voice, or the parameters around that are involved, the muscles that are involved in speech and singing, right? So I don't have a wind instrument with me, but I'm going to invite you guys to do a really silly intervention with me. For my choir guys, you will know of this one. We're going to take the tune Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I hope everyone's comfortable sticking their tongue out, because we're going to do that together. So what we're going to do, this is great. You're really going to work on the cheeks and these muscles in here as we do this intervention. I really want you to think about squeezing. And we're going to alternate between and and while you do that, I know it's so silly, and while you do that, really think about keeping these cheeks and here nice and tight, right? So let's do it all together. Here we go. Yeah, very good. Round of applause to everybody. That was great. So again, we're working on the muscles, right? The muscles that are involved in speech. For individuals that sort of are experiencing the loss of motor control in there, alternating between the humming and the tongue is actually a really difficult thing to do, which is why we take a familiar song such as Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, because it takes those musical parameters and allows our body to like expect the movement and expect the note to come next. Pair that to a rhythm. Not only do we not only do we move to a beat, but we can also speak to a beat, right? And this is our next intervention. Rhythmic speech cueing. So this is literally taking a beat and speaking to a beat. And why is this important? Because it helps to slow down if we need to, or it helps to speed up if our rate of speech isn't appropriate. Also really helps with the timing of our language in general. So there's 2 things that we can do here. We can say, hello, how are you? Which is very slow, but we're just focusing on the syllables here. Hello, how are you? Good. Oh, everyone's doing it. Hello, how are you? Perfect. Or we can make it sound a little bit more speech-like. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Good. Hello, how are you? Very good. Right, so we time our speech, and it sounds beautiful. You guys all sounded great there. Thank you so much for doing that. Yeah, so again, really helping to improve that intelligibility of speech and the breath support for individuals that are experiencing dysarthria that's related to Parkinson's disease. Our next intervention here is vocal intonation therapy. And these interventions or these exercises are really look very similar to your choir exercises, right? Yeah. So for our individuals that join the choir, the PSSO choir, it's a lot of fun. You should do it. If you guys join the choir, you know what I'm talking about. But these are specific exercises that help to improve that respiratory function, but then also help to improve the fluency of our speech, as well as like the endurance and everything else. So when we think of respiratory exercises, vocal intonation therapy, we're thinking of activating that diaphragm. And best way to sort of find that diaphragm is through panting like a dog. Yeah, you guys, I'm seeing all of your stomachs move. Nice work. I always joke that at the end of our choir, you guys will have a six-pack. This is not true. I'm still waiting for mine, but it's a thing. So again, to naturally sort of, these interventions are used to naturally build your voice, to make your voice a bit stronger, to be able to project your voice without putting any strain on your voice. So there's lots of support that talks about this, including a study with Benedetto and colleagues, where they use these interventions to naturally improve your diaphragm and your breath support. Participants that participated in a Parkinson's-related choir were required to, in this study, people participated in a Parkinson's-related choir, and they were required to do 2 hours of singing every week for I don't have the date here, but I think it was for 24 weeks. And they found that through singing and through participating in a choir like this, increased their respiratory function, increased their capacity, and the duration of vowel phonation as well. In another interesting study, and I apologize, it's not actually on my slide, but there was another very interesting study that looked at 2 types of meditation. And the goal was not for meditation, but the goal was to look at your respiratory system and taking a sound, literally chanting for 20 minutes, versus same thing, but making an S sound with a sound, zzz, kind of your Zs, zzz, zzz, zzz. Good. I invite everybody to put your hand on your stomach. Let's do your om again. Om, om, om. Do we feel any activation? Not really. Let's do your Z, your Z, your Z. Zzz, 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 zzz. Do you feel any activation there? Yes, yeah, because your S, your Zs, those vowels are just naturally activate your diaphragm. And so when we are able to exercise our diaphragm is when we get to see those really fabulous benefits of singing and everything else, right? So for individuals in this study, they either did the om sound or the z sound, and they found that individuals that were in the z group, I don't know how to do that without singing it, individuals that were in that group actually showed an increase in oxygen levels, an increase, again, in your respiratory strength, your pulmonary functions, all of that. So really, really cool to see that. And then our final intervention here is therapeutic singing. So therapeutic singing is your more generalized use of singing activities. And again, these are it can be singing a favorite song, it can be singing happy birthday, right? I heard everybody singing Long Way to Tipperary and Que Sera Sera, well, not everyone, but some people sang with me, so thank you for doing that because I was quite nervous at the beginning. I feel like I'm not anymore, so. But singing and speaking, the reason it works so well for a speaking voice is because singing and speaking sort of use the same tools or use the same vocal mechanisms in our bodies to project that voice, right? In order to speak, in order to sing, we also have to be able to speak in the same way, kind of. So it's a really effective tool for controlling that vocal control, respiration, phonation, articulation, resonance, all of those really fabulous things that I'm sure some people have difficulty with. yeah, so again, the Parkinson's Choir, often we will participate in the OMREX, VIT, and the therapeutic singing, which is really, really great. I do have a video demonstration, again, of OMREX here. So this is an individual who I had worked with, and what we're playing, thank you, what we're playing is a melodica. So a melodica is sort of a piano that you blow into. I have a melodica, and he has a melodica, and I'm playing both of the melodicas at the same time, just so you know what's going on. Perfect. Okay, so really cool there, right? So seems really easy, but what's happening is like he really struggled getting that air out, and so by having those temporal cues to be able to hold your breath for that period of time, he's copying what I'm playing. All right, good. So that brings us to the end of the the speech and language domain. Really, really quickly want to just go over the cognitive rehab. And I'm not going to talk too much about this because this could literally take 2 hours to go through. But remember how we talked at the beginning about how much of a workout it is to engage in music. This diagram shows your brain on music, right? We have that sensory cortex, the auditory cortex, the visual cortex, the cerebellum, which is your foot tapping, playing, whatever. The hippocampus, the amygdala, which is your emotional response that's happening. Your prefrontal cortex, which is your understanding of music. Your motor cortex, so that's your movement. And again, even when we're not moving, by listening to a rhythm actually fires the entrainment in your mind and actually still stimulates the motor cortex even though you're not moving, which is super interesting to see. Good. So again, within this domain, we have, our goals are sort of to increase your executive functioning skills, your attention, improving your memory, recall. So not to go through these, don't have time to go through all of these interventions, but do just want to bring up like that engaging in music can really modify, right? I mean, there's a common tout who is the one that created neurologic music therapy. His quote is, the brain is what created music, kind of, but the brain that engages in music is also changed by music, if you can think about it, right? The brain that engages in music is also changed by music. So the first 4 interventions there are your executive functioning, your attention control, your mood, right? Not your mood, your memory training. Best example I can give here is your ABCs, right? We all sang A, B, C, D, E, F, G to learn something, right? Your auditory perception skills, so we're really just honing in on making your understanding of auditory come forward. But the final intervention that I do want to bring up is your music and psychosocial training. So this is where my registered psychotherapy title comes in. Not only is music really, really beneficial to improve those rehab, to improve your movement and speech, but it's also such a great tool to address the psychosocial needs, your anxiety, your depression, and stuff like that. So, okay. Just don't want to take up too much time. So things to do at home, right? Things to take away, things that you can do. Listen to music. Right? Listen to music. It's so, so wonderful. Use rhythm while we walk, or I would suggest trying to find what your cadence is, trying to find how quickly you walk, and try and find music within that range, so that if you're walking at 100 steps per minute, you're going to want to try to find music that's 100 beats per minute, right? Same sort of thing. Yeah, good. Incorporating that, practicing your diaphragmic breathing, choir-like singing exercises, stuff like that, and always keep singing, because that's just so wonderful. All right. Do I have time to play this final video? Okay, thank you. So if you guys saw this last week, this is our choir. Or last year, I mean.
red roses too.
I sail blue for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
I see skies of blue, clouds of white,
Bright blessed day, dark sacred night. Think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do?
they're really saying that I love you.
I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
All right, thank you, everybody.